morning. Welcome to the garden. I'm glad you're here with us today. I don't think most of us realize, we may know it in our head, but we don't necessarily understand it in our heart, just how important it is to be a part of a community of sort or another. Some of you may have read Malcolm Gladwell's book entitled Outliers. In that book, he talks about someone by the name of Louis Terman. And Louis had realized that there were people around him who were quite bright, quite intelligent, so he tested their IQs and found out that indeed they were. But then he had this observation that there were some who, although they were quite bright, at least according to the IQ, hadn't really succeeded, at least not in terms of the way the world thinks of success. And that puzzled him, and so he decided to make a study of the gifted his life's work. Now, he followed his subjects like a mother hen and followed them into adulthood. And as they got into adulthood, he began to look at their records, their track record. And he was able to divide this group of subjects into three categories, three groups really. The A group, he called the A group, was the top 20%. And these were the folks who could be described as having succeeded in life. Then there was the middle group that was the bulk of it, about 60% of those who were considered to be bright and quite gifted. And they were people who were doing okay. They weren't setting the world on fire, but they were doing okay. And then there was the C group. The C group was the lowest 20%. And it was judged, that group was judged, that they had done the least with the amazing mental abilities that they had. And Terman wondered just exactly why that was the case, why that happened. And he began to delve into the family backgrounds, and he discovered that there was this huge difference between the family backgrounds of those in the A group and those in the C group. You see, the families of those in the A group had really worked to prepare their kids, their children, if you will, to face the world, to deal with the world as it came to them. That was what the C group didn't have. It had been denied that experience. And so Terman was able to kind of summarize his findings by saying that they lacked a community around them that prepared them properly for the world. And that's part of the role of a community, to help us then be able to live in the world and function in the world in a good way, in a positive way. I suppose there are many different definitions of what community actually is. One I like is this: a community is a sense of cohesiveness among a group of people. And that means that there is a common thread that sort of pulls people together, ties people together, if you will. And we're there to work toward a common goal, a common mission, and support one another, encourage one another, help one another in the best ways that we possibly can. Well, how do we become a part of a community? I like to think that we're already a part of a community, as we're a part of the garden, and certainly in each of our services there's an opportunity to be part of a community. I think there's a common thread. We would probably define it all differently, but I'm thinking that part of the reason we all come together is that we are trying to figure out a meaning and purpose for our lives and try to have a stronger connection with the one who's greater than we are. Maybe we're trying to figure out how to live life a little better, how to find things that connect us better to people in one way or the other. Now, you may have realized, if you've been around the garden for a while, that it's a little tough sometimes for us to make those connections, given the fact that we're in and out the way we are. And so we've tried different kinds of things to add additional opportunities, like, learning opportunities or service opportunities or just social gatherings. And those have turned out really well. It's just hard to do them enough to really help us connect with one another in meaningful ways. And part of what I've realized is, although they do well, not everybody is included in them. Not everybody is able to attend or be a part of. Now, partially that's due to time or other commitments, but partially it's due to the fact that people are part of maybe numerous communities, different kinds of communities. For example, we have a really large recovery community as a part of the garden. And many of those people are very much a part of some fellowship groups that support them and encourage them and help them to stay true to their mission, to what they're about in life. And so it's important to honor that. And I keep hearing how very valuable that is. And I would hope that all of our communities, all of our gatherings that we're a part of would be indeed of that kind of value to us. Now, some of you may have remembered way back, if you've been around the garden for a while, when we had part of the building over across the yard there next door. We called it the bridge. And it was an opportunity for a little additional time to be around one another, to have another cup of coffee, or to share a story, or to do some discussion, or whatever we might be wanting to do. But once that went away, then we had to try to do different kinds of things in different places and in different ways. It's both a strength for us not to have our own place, but it also has its drawbacks. And so for example, we found out there's a bunch of folks here who like to ride their motorcycles. So we've done a couple motorcycle rides and wound up with a gathering when people got to their destination, and that turned out really well. You may remember about a year or so ago, a year and a half ago maybe now, we all got together over at St. Luke's and made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and packed lunches for the hungry in our community. That was a one-time thing, but there really isn't any reason it couldn't be done more than once and on some sort of a regular basis. We've talked about the gardens, the two gardens we have, the educational garden and then the food pantry garden. Now, apparently there's been a little thievery going on in one of our gardens, in our food pantry garden, but I'm only hoping that those who have taken some of the vegetation have also used it for people who are really hungry and who really need it. So that's our hope for there. But there's always stuff to be done there. It was really fun to see the people come together and put the dirt all in there, and then to come and help plant the plants. And there are people there who are tending it. And some of us aren't very good at that kind of thing, but we can gather 2 or 3 folks around and surely pull a weed. We can tell the difference between a weed and something else. So, and then after we spend an hour or so doing that, go get a cup of coffee and get to know somebody a little bit better. So that's another possibility we have for helping people connect if they have that interest. And, any of us could do that kind of thing. We've tried to provide some learning opportunities as well. I know that Betty Ellison offered a personal statement, a mission statement workshop, and I've heard good results about that people really found it enjoyable as well as helpful and meaningful to them. And she's also offered to lead a session on the book that's called Now Discover Your Strengths, to help identify what our strong points are and really to live in tune with those. And that's a good process. And if you think you'd be interested, let us know, and we'll try to get something scheduled for that. I was really pleased with the number of gardeners who wound up being a part of a pastor's study group over at St. Luke's toward the end of spring, when I led a discussion there on the Tom Stella book that we talked about here, Finding God Beyond Religion. But I had several people say that wasn't a time slot that worked for them, and they'd really like to have the opportunity to read and discuss that book with a group of folks. And if you're one of those and would like to do that, let me know, and we can certainly put something together and make that happen. Certainly we have other kinds of dreams or hopes of things that might come to be. One of the things I've talked about is forming a writers group. We have folks here who really like to write, who are really good at writing. We have some published authors here. And I thought it would be kind of fun to get folks together and challenge one another and help one another in trying to put together something we write. There's someone here who's a nationally known speaker and a workshop leader who's offered to do a gathering for us around diversity, which is something that affects every single one of us, and certainly a good thing for us to learn from and to pull together from. We've also done some traveling. Some of you have gone to Ireland and Scotland with us in the past, and there'll be some more opportunities for that. And those have been really good opportunities to draw closer, because you get to know people better when you travel with them for a while. Now, I know that's not something that everybody can do, but yet it really does help to be able to do that. There are all different kinds of things that we'd like to do and have tried to do, and hopefully will continue to try to do. And if there are some things that you're interested in, please let us know, any of us here who are in leadership, and we'll see what we can do to make it happen with your help along the way. Now, one of the things, even though it's difficult for us to get together, one of the things I have noticed, I'll go outside sometime between services, and when I do, I very often see some of you standing in a little group. I'm talking to some of the folks that you've met either in the driveway or down in the parking lot, and I think that's a good thing. I just would like to see more of it. I wish it would really happen. And part of the reason I think it doesn't happen is that we don't really know one another. We haven't had a really good opportunity to get to know the people who are in this room with us at this time. So we're going to do something a little different today. Don't groan. Thank you for not groaning. We're going to try something a little different and try to get to know one another. And we'll start with something pretty safe and pretty generic. So I'm going to ask some questions, and if you fit in this category, if your answer would be yes, then raise your hand. And let's look around and see who shares some backgrounds with us, for example. For instance, one of my questions would be, who is a native Hoosier? Who was born in Indiana? Okay, quite a few of you. What about Indianapolis? Who's born and raised in Indianapolis, or at least born in Indianapolis? Okay, some more of you there. Who's retired? Oh, you lucky dogs. Okay, I suppose then the rest of us would raise our hand for being employed or wanting to be employed in the workforce in one way or another. Okay, let's try something a little different. Who is someone who likes to be creative? Now, I don't care how good you are or not good. Just like to paint, to draw, to dance, to sing, to play an instrument, to do what you would consider to be creative. Any kind of artwork, crafts, that kind of thing. Who's creative? Okay, good. I noticed there are more children raising their hands than there are adults. What happens in that process? Okay, let me ask something else. Who likes to ride bike, the human-powered bike? Anybody? Okay. See, we used to have a biking group, too. All right. Who's a runner? We have any runners? Okay, we have runners. Has anybody done the mini? Oh, wow, a bunch of you. All right, how about a marathon? Okay. For a long time, I've thought we should have a Costco lunch group after third service. You don't know how many Costco people show up over there who are from over here. That hadn't happened yet, but certainly a good opportunity. Okay. I'm going to ask to do something a little different, a little more personal here. What I want you to do, and we don't do this very often, and I promise we're probably never going to do it again, at least not for a long time. We'll see how it goes. It went really well first service. It's up to you now to carry the ball. I want you to get up and see somebody you don't really know and go introduce yourself and let them introduce themselves, and then find a way to kind of identify with them. Like some way to remember their names, or to remember some connecting point with them. How could they help you do that? For instance, somebody who was on one of our travel groups, I do this sometimes in a group, and I asked, how are we going to remember you? How are we going to know who you are? And this person said her name, and then she said, and I always have a Diet Coke with me. And so that was a connecting point. Whenever we saw this person with a Diet Coke, we knew who she was. Excuse me. And so find something there. You can ask questions like, do you have hobbies? What kind of hobbies do you engage in? What's your favorite thing to do in the kind of day? What's your favorite? See, I don't care what you ask, but just some question that gives some information that helps you form a little identity. Now, don't be shy. As I say, we're not going to do this for very long, just a couple of minutes. And Ed's going to kind of bring the house lights up a little bit and help you do that. And when those house lights start to go down, then you kind of need to move your way back to your place, because we do have a time limit here. So, all right, you ready? Ready, set, go. Move, move, move. Thank you so much for being willing to do this. Could you move back to your seats, please, so we can hold true to our promise to the theater to allow the next group to come in? Thank you so much. Hopefully, we've made little tiny baby steps toward getting to know some people beyond those that we already knew. And maybe we can call them by name next time and connect with them in a way. And it's a tiny baby step toward becoming a closer community, maybe, that is helpful to know one another. Leslie Dreyfus has written a book that's entitled Getting a Life. And in it, he talks about visiting a second grade classroom. And this class had been doing a unit on community and what community was. And they were kind of winding up their study of it. And so the teachers asked, what do you do in a community? What are the elements, the things that are a part of community? And one person said that we're polite. And somebody else said, we're nice to one another. And someone else said we share. And someone else said we don't argue and fight. And then as they were beginning things to get quiet, somebody else popped up and said this: it's a safe place to be. That's a community, a place where it's safe. And as I thought about that, I really agree. It's a place where we can be who we are and we're accepted as we are, and it's an okay place. And so my prayer is that the garden is a safe place, now and always.